Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for The Expanse, Season 3, Episode 10, Dandelion Sky. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of The Expanse, so I'll have to start with a spoiler warning for The Expanse up to Season 3, Episode 10. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. However, this video will not contain spoilers from the novels, so if you haven't read the novels, this review will be book spoiler free. However, for those of you who have read the novels, I will have a spoiler section at the end of the video. However, I will give proper spoiler warnings before doing so. So this episode, it was interesting. I don't know, I would say I wasn't that enthused about it. I thought some of the storylines were a bit frustrating to me because they were moving too slow, and other storylines were moving a bit too fast and skipping over stuff I liked in the books. So overall, I wasn't that impressed with the episode until we get to the final scene at the end, which was amazing, mind-blowing, blew me away. Probably the best ending an episode has ever had since my favorite episode, Season 2, Episode 5, Home. So this really blew me away. So after it, I was like, wow, this episode's amazing. So I had to go back and watch that scene 5 times. But I still say before that, I wouldn't say it was horrible. It was still interesting. It was still good. Still excellent character building. Good stuff like The Expanse always does. But probably some of the weaker stuff of the season, but I wouldn't say this is the weakest episode because that ending was just amazing. Anyway, let me get into the different storylines. We'll start with Naomi. Now, this is probably the storyline that was the most frustrating to me because I was really hoping to see her meet the Rocinante in this episode, and the scenes we get with her is her trying to contact them and being puzzled by why they're not responding, which is kind of tedious for the viewer because the viewer already knows why they're not responding because they've been sabotaged and the comms are dead. They can't get her message or respond. So it's a bit frustrating that to have this character who's completely puzzled by this. You think maybe she might actually figure that out. Say she kept thinking, well, why aren't they responding? Maybe she said, well, maybe their comms aren't working and they need your help. But anyway, and that conversation she had with the Martians, it was she was being a bit obtuse in my opinion too, because she kept trying to convince the Martians, oh, Holden didn't do it, but she should know that they're a bureaucracy and they're just this policing force, and they don't really think for themselves. They're just like a military, so they just do as they're ordered in order to retrieve Holden. That's that. And so, of course, I'm not saying I hate it. It was interesting having her, hit her head on that particular brick wall. But I just wish we got more of Naomi in this episode. And I wish that she had gotten up to the Rocinante. But then again, they might be pacing it on purpose this way. So maybe it will make sense why they're postponing her getting to the Rocinante. So I'll have to wait till the next couple episodes because maybe the timing will work for those episodes. In any regard, we do see the Rocinate's point of view, and one thing that disappointed me, mentioning Naomi again, is that they didn't even bring up the fact that there was a Belter skiff on their way towards them. It seems like they would have at least noticed it. Now, I think they would have even deduced it was could possibly be Naomi, so I was hoping this here Alex and Amos sort of debate that and wonder what to do. Maybe they should change course and try to intercept it, which is what I keep saying that they're going to do. But they didn't even mention it. And that really frustrated me. At least mention that they noticed there's this Belter ship or whatever. Anyway, I did like the scene with Alex and Amos and how they got the message from Holden, where Holden was saying, I'm going off on my own. And by the time they got the message, it was too late for them to catch up to them. But, Holden told them not to, under the very strong impression that if it wasn't too late, they would have. They wouldn't have cared. Holden says, I order you, but, this isn't the most formal kind of crew. I think they would have been, quoted data from First Contact and be like, to hell with your orders. They wouldn't care about his orders. They would have went and saved him. But it was too late, and it was really interesting getting Amos and Alex's interaction in that regard. And I love how Alex is talking about how he was terrified, and Amos said he hasn't felt fear since he was 5 years old. And Alex is like, wow, I wish I knew what it was like to go through life without feeling fear. And Amos is like, no, you don't. Great moment, great character moment between Alex and Amos. I like their interactions here. I just wish maybe their storyline would have been a bit further, like them catching up with Naomi, but next week or the week after, we'll see. Anyway, so yeah, that stuff was interesting. And then we also get some scenes on the Behemoth. This is really interesting because, first of all, Ashford is very publicly putting down Drummer in front of the entire crew for letting Naomi leave. And he's obviously very pissed off about this because she was a very valuable asset. She was definitely the best engineer that they had, and they're at a disadvantage without her. And so he's sort of taking his frustration out on Drummer, and Drummer goes and off to, because he said, oh, Naomi would be able to come up with a probe to send, and now they don't have her. But Drummer's like, I have an idea, we have this farming equipment, I'll go off and do it. And plus she said it because she knows that they have these farming probes because she's familiar with the ship. So she says that as a dig on Ashford, sort of like getting back at him, because he's sort of implying that she's not a good captain for letting people desert, and she's getting back at him. It's like, well, I know the ship and you don't, so shut the fuck up. So there was a lot of subtext there, but it was really great because we get Giago, who of course is a devoted follower of Ashford, going up and saying, I think you should be in command, not Drummer. And as soon as he suggests this, he's like, watch yourself. And he keeps talking. And Ashford says, I've been through all this shit he's been through. And so when I say watch yourself, I mean stop talking. And that was a really great scene. But it's really interesting when we actually get the confrontation between Ashford and Drummer, because Drummer's in the cargo bay repairing all the farming probes to try to retrofit them so they can go out into the void. And it's interesting because she talked about how she's there pretty much because she's really pissed off and wants to get away from people, so she doesn't let her anger get the whole better of her. And this is interesting. This is a callback. We actually saw her do this in the beginning of the season when Fred Johnson pissed her off. She went and hid and be like, you usually know better to leave me alone until I till I calm down, let this anger pass. So she was doing kind of the same thing here. And Ashford went to apologize and said, look, you're right. It was wrong of me to contradict you in front of the crew. It's not very professional. But then he kept trying to give her advice, and she took that the wrong way. She's like, you're always trying to give me advice. You're always trying to tell me what to do. You act like you're just so much smarter than me. And she was getting really sick of this condescending, or at least she viewed it as a condescending attitude. I didn't think that was in his intention to be condescending. I think that he generally wants to help her. And when he says, I'm just trying to help you, I think he means it. But I can kind of see her point of view as well, that he does come off as a bit condescending. So what I find really interesting is that she assumes that he is trying to take command from her. And by that move of him contradicting her in front of the crew was his way of posting seeds of doubt in the crew. And as we see with Diago going up to Ashford, it seems like that's exactly what happened. But he insists that that's not the case. But she's saying, oh, I bet you told them all to just drop anything and just to listen to me because you told them that. So that way when you do take over command, you can play it out as if it was the only option, was the right thing to do. So this brings up an interesting question. Do you think she's correct? Do you think it is actually his intention to take command from her? And this whole thing that he said to Diago, watch yourself, was just a calculated move to do exactly what she said. Personally, I mean, I'm open to that possibility, but personally, I don't think, if I had to bet, I would say that's not the case. I think he's genuine. I think he really wants to help her. And I think when he was berating her for letting Naomi leave. That wasn't a calculated move to, plant seeds of doubt within the crew. I think that he was genuinely frustrated over their situation, over what he saw as a very bad command decision. And I think he genuinely regrets saying that in public because he realizes that that is a bad move to contradict your captain in front of other people. This is, basic command leadership 101. You always take the leader aside if you have any complaints and tell them in private, and don't do it in front of everyone else. So you always present a united front. I actually think that that was a lapse of judgment for him because he's not perfect either, and I don't think that he is purposely telling Jagu listen to Drummer just because he's trying to do a calculated move to take command. I do think he generally was being genuine when he told Jagu, drop this bullshit about me taking over command. I'm not the captain, she's the captain. I think that's definitely the case. But Drummer, I think may well be right. So she's actually very justified to feel that it is the case. So we had this, and Ashford points out there's a problem. We have a problem between us. We need to sort it out. That could be interpreted as we need to have it out. But I think he generally wants to make this work. As I said before, I think he wants the belt. He knows that if the belt is squabbling amongst themselves, that that's never going to work. He wants the belt to be united. So I generally believe that he wants Drummer to work as the captain, but it'll be really interesting to see where this goes. And of course, we don't really know what happened because they're in this cargo bay with all this loose equipment, and of course all the ships got stopped. Which is a very bad thing. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this is handled, but I'm really interested to see where they take the storyline. Anyway, let's get over to Anna on the Thomas Prince. Boy, Anna had it really rough this episode, didn't she? She kept making one bad decision after another. Like first decision, she wasn't being caring enough. She ignored a guy who was obviously needed comfort. He was crying out for help, and she completely ignored him, and he killed himself. And then she went the opposite way, where she gave Tilly advice to reach out to, Clarissa Mao, be friendly and reach out and give them help. And of course, she's a homicidal maniac, so that's actually the wrong move. So first she was not caring enough, and then she was too caring and almost got her friend killed. So that's really interesting. And it remains to be seen if she is killed. But anyway, I do like how they had that. This is a version of a storyline in the books that was much, much longer, and frankly I thought it was really boring. So I'm actually loved the way that the show streamlined the storyline and simplified it. There wasn't a suicide in the novels, if I remember correctly, unless I'm just forgetting it. But I think that was a great way. There was just a lot of troubled people who were of faith, and Anna held like sermons or whatever to calm them down and comfort them. And so I think this is and it had the way the show handled it was much better. It was shorter, it wasn't as boring, and it had a lesson for Anna as well, because it showed how she was so enthralled with the ring, and she was focusing on the ring, and this guy was asking her a question: do we think God do you think God wants us here? And she's just pretty much, yeah, I don't know, Scripture doesn't cover that, excuse me, stop bothering me, I'm trying to pay attention to this ring. Which and I like this for storytelling purpose. I think this is really well done. It was really interesting, and it does teach her humility. It has a huge lesson for her once the guy did kill himself. And by the way, when we had that scene when he was walking down the hallway and we were focusing on this one guy, I knew it was obvious he was going to kill himself. Very obvious. Now, one other quick thing I want to point out in case you didn't catch it. In the previous episode when Anna was talking to Hank Cortez, and he was in line to leave, and there was this deserter who was trying to leave, and the military men came up to him and was like, you're out of uniform, ensign. That was actually this dude. I can't even remember his name at the moment, but the dude who killed himself, that was the same guy. So that's pretty interesting that he was the one that forced the guy who was scared to stay on the ship, and he himself was really scared and ended up killing himself because of that. So that's actually really interesting. Maybe that having to force the guy to stay is also contributed to why he was so troubled and why he killed himself. So yeah, that part was really well handled. I think, yeah, it was great that she realized like what a mistake she was doing, that she is a pastor first, and her job, even if she's not officially on the clock, but her job is to comfort people and to listen to people's problems, like she did with Melba. When she saw Melba was really troubled, she went to her for saying, "Can I help you?" And with this guy who's obviously very troubled, she just ignored him because she was too enthralled with the ring. She was like, and Tilly's like, "Well, don't beat yourself up too much, because this is like an alien environment where this is one of the first humans to actually go there, so it is a big deal." But she's like, it doesn't matter, because that doesn't stop me from being a priest. It doesn't stop me from I should notice when people are in trouble, when people are crying out for help. So I did really like that, and I think the sermon she gave at the guy's service was very touching. I think it shows what kind of character that she has, that she was trying to reach out to people and sort of correct her mistake. And sort of, it was, what she said was sort of also geared towards the other people who, in case they were feeling troubled, and trying to comfort them as well, and trying to get everyone to comfort each other. So that was very nice. And I also liked how, they officially said, "Oh, he was cleaning his gun and it went off," and she's like, "I don't like that euphemism," because she knew right away he killed himself. And I think they know he killed himself. They just don't want to say that officially. Because he had a gun in his mouth. There's no way you can mistake that from going off while he was cleaning his gun. But anyway. But of course, as we know, Tilly runs into Clarissa. And we knew this was a possibility from last week when Clarissa already recognized Tilly because she was at the party. And Clarissa ran into her and was like, "Oh, I know you." She's like, "Oh, you have me mistaken for someone else," which is pretty weak. But what else is she going to do? But anyway, again, as I mentioned, Anna gives her bad advice, tells her, "Oh, go and reach out." And again, to be fair to Anna, like, she doesn't know that Clarissa is a homicidal maniac. And it was also established in the earlier part of the season when you saw Anna with Gillis and Aaron Wright, and Aaron Wright was talking about, "Oh, we're going after Mal's family," how she was very much against that too. So I think she feels some sort of guilt over that, which is why she didn't want to out her as a Mal, because as they mentioned, like, the whole family's like in trouble, and they're not supposed to, like, they sort of just left without permission, and they're all went under when he went under, and she doesn't find that fair, as she talked about in the first part of the season. And you gotta agree with her with that. It is kind of unfair to take out Jules Pierre Mal's mistakes on his entire family. So I get why she wants to help Clarissa, and I understand that. But unfortunately, she is naive in this, or ignorant in this situation. She doesn't know that Clarissa's pretty much turned into a homicidal maniac. I mean, and to be fair, how could she know? I mean, so this is just happened, poor happenstance, where she pretty much sends her friend to get killed. And when Tilly confronts her and is like, "Let me help you," and as soon as she says, "No, Holden has to pay," I'm like, she's not going to let her live after she heard that. So, and then we see her bite down on her implant or whatever, to activate her implant, to activate the drugs to make her a super killer. And I was just like, oh my god, that's it. Tilly's done. She's dead. But serendipity happens, and it happened at the same time that all the ships got bam and caught by the slow thingy, which I'll touch on a bit later. So the protomolecule thingy, whatever, it just stopped all the ships the same way it stopped the probes, and so they all went flying. So Tilly might actually make it out alive because of that serendipitous intervention, but if it wasn't for that, she'd be dead. So poor Anna, when she finds out that she almost sent her friend to her death, not going to take that very well. So let's hope that she makes better decisions from here on out. Anyway, and I wonder if Anna knows who Clarissa was, because she's been talking to Melba, and Tilly mentioned it was this tech, but you gotta assume there's more than just one tech on board. I mean, I know like her other team didn't stay on to go to the ring, but you gotta think that she wasn't the only tech who stayed on to go to the ring, because when she tried to get permission to do this thing, she didn't, like, they wouldn't let her because she didn't have authorization or whatever. And and Clarissa, we get a few scenes with her, but nothing that much to talk about. She's just basically trying to get to the Rosinante, kept trying to plot a course to get there before the Martians, but she could never do it. And then she says, "Oh, what's the blast radius if the Rosinante just explodes?" So that actually has me thinking that she can destroy the Rosinante. Maybe not remotely, but she has the ability to destroy it. And maybe that's why she's trying to get there. To destroy them. So that's very scary. And maybe if Tilly hadn't interceded, Clarissa would have set off a bomb or something that would have blew up the Rosinante right then and there. I don't know, maybe not, but that is sort of interesting to see that, and it's another sort of point of tension going forward. Anyway, let's talk about Bobby Draper, because we finally get Bobby Draper. She appeared briefly in episode 7 when she was talking to Alex, so we did know that she was on the Martian ship going to the ring as well, and so it kind of makes sense that she's on the ship that had entered the ring. Now, it's very serendipitous that she just so happens to be on the ship that's going to the ring, and just so happens to be in the team that's sent to get Holden. Now, you could say, oh, maybe she was purposely on that team because they know that she's familiar with Holden, but I don't know about that. But that being said, she wasn't in the novels, she wasn't in book 3 at this stage, and I actually think what the show did by introducing her, regardless of how serendipitous it is, was much better. It was much more interesting. It brought a lot more flavor to this scene. It was so good to actually have this conflict with Bob, because she knows Holden. She knows that he's a good guy, but she's ordered to bring him back, and she always follows her orders, and she's not going to betray her people. So it's this sort of tightrope that she has to walk, and it was so interesting, especially even getting Holden's perspective once he learned that Bobby Draper was there. How it really adds a lot of flavor to the scene. So I love it. I think the show was very smart to include her, and plus she's such a great character. It would be a shame to leave her out of this part of the storyline altogether. But the scenes we get with her talking to her team was it really interesting, because you get she doesn't believe for a second that he destroyed the ship, but she's still under orders to retrieve him, and I do like that. And it does make a lot of sense, because even though they're not the best of friends and they weren't together for that long, they still they went through the thick of it together. Together they helped bring down Jules Pierre Mal and stop the protomolecule from destroying Mars. And that's the other thing, is that I get the impression, even though the rest of her team didn't have this personal experience with Holden, that they still hold him in high regard for saving Mars. And as I mentioned before, that they saved Mars, and Mars is being petty by wanting to get the ship back. But I think that's sort of the bureaucracy, the higher ups, whereas the grunts, the people on the ground, they appreciate him. And I think, I don't know, I haven't said whether or not, I think they're just kind of on the fence of whether or not he destroyed the ship. For them, it's kind of not the point. Their orders are to retrieve him, and that's all there is to it. So I don't know if they are like Bobby, where they know he didn't do it. But I think when she says that, I think they want to believe her, because this is the guy who saved Mars. But still, again, they're ordered to retrieve him, and that's what they're going to do. So that was very interesting interactions. Of course, the leader of the team is went to Bobby, "Are you sure you're up for this? Because I know he's your friend. You've been through a lot together. If you're not, you can stay behind, and we'll handle this." But of course, Bobby's professional. So she's going to go. And when we see them go, and when Bobby does confront, we do find out that Bobby is indeed not letting her friendship get in the way, because she actually tries to shoot him when he doesn't comply. And if it wasn't for the weird protomolecule thingy, he would have died. She would have killed him. So she's completely committed to following orders, even if it means shooting someone that she knows is a good man. But on the other hand, we did get that scene when, the Martians are trying to call him. Bobby Draper says, let me try. So she tries, and Holden, when he hears her voice, he's like, hey, you're here, that's you. But then he starts talking to Miller. And of course, from their end, that it sounds like he's crazy, that he's just all of a sudden going nuts. So even Bobby is under the impression that he's gone a bit nuts. So I think that plants seeds of doubt that he maybe went a bit crazy and did destroy the ship. So I still think that she ultimately doesn't believe it, and when she encounters him, she says, I don't believe you did it. So I think she's telling the truth, but I think there are seeds of doubt now, and there's definitely seeds of doubt of what he's doing on the station, because she thinks that maybe he's gone a bit nuts. So I think that definitely played a part in why she actually did decide to fire on him, and because she was like, he was just saying, please trust me, but she wasn't in a position to trust him because she thought he had gone nuts. Which is a shame. It was kind of dumb for Holden to talk to Miller while he was on the line with Bobby. He should have just tried to ignore him. And, he had this brief thing where he's saying, shut up, I'm trying to listen. Like, he should have, after that, like, that's understandable. You can let that one slide. But then he kept talking to him. It's like, come on, Holden, just ignore him. And if you're not going to talk to Bobby, just say nothing in the call. If you can't ignore Miller, if he's that. But I don't see how Miller would be that sort of invasive. Because he actually could have had a chance to convince Bobby to be on his side, but no, he was going a bit crazy. So that did add a really interesting element to it. Now, let's get into the Holden and Miller scenes, which were really great. I loved it. We had the whole thing with Holden on the way, and I did love the way these scenes were filmed. The way we see Holden floating in the blue void, and Miller sort of just standing there because obviously he doesn't need a suit because he's just like a projection. And the interactions between them were great, where Holden was like starting to go really fast and Miller's like, whoa, what are you doing? I told you, doors and corners, you're gonna splatter on the thing. And then Holden slows down right before he hits the speed limit, and he was like, oh, I'm just exercising free will. And Miller's like, well, more like you're being an asshole. So it's great getting those interesting character interactions between them. And then of course, like, because Miller's being a lot more coherent now, like he was in the previous episode. In the previous episode, we only saw him for one scene, so it's great to get these long, extended scenes of the two of them talking, and Miller actually holding a competent conversation. It was interesting because Miller pretty much, lets it slip that he is not Miller. He's just the investigator. He's like this proto-molecule projection thing, and he kind of explains to Holden that they sort of did something to his brain and manipulated somehow so that he could see him. So that's why no one else really sees him. And Holden's like, oh, you did this thing, so I'm seeing weird things that aren't there. You're making me hallucinate. He's like, well, no, because there's also, it's like the way you perceive reality is really, I don't know. It's hard for me to paraphrase what he said, but basically I totally understood what he was saying here, and it didn't make a lot of sense. That it wasn't so much of a hallucination, but the same way parts of his brain that allow him to perceive reality, they just altered that to allow Miller be part of that reality. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well, but I think the way he explained it was very good in the show, and I totally really liked this scene. And I absolutely love what they finally get to, they want to get to this room. Miller says that they have to unlock this key so they can find out this information to give them, hopefully find out what's going on with the proto-molecule, basically. What's going on with the thingy. And Holden's like, what, you don't know? You're a projection of it. And he's like, well, as I said, some things are locked, some things are hidden. That's why I need you to go into this room and unlock them. So Holden, and I do like it, and there's a ticking clock that they're aware of because the Martians are coming to get them, and Miller's like, well, I can stop them for good, basically meaning kill them. And Holden says no. And that's another great thing of why it's good having Bobby Draper there, because he obviously doesn't want to kill her. Now, he probably would have said no anyway, even if she wasn't there, just because he just doesn't want to kill people like that. But it added an extra incentive for him to be like, no. But so they had this ticking clock. So Miller's like, hurry up and do it. But then Holden has his doubts. And his doubts are understandable, because this is the protomolecule after all. And he's had a lot of rough encounters with the protomolecule, to be fair. And he's like, wait, how do I know by me doing this, I'm just not going to destroy humanity? And Miller just says some bullshit. And Holden's like, no, I don't think it's true. And then he tries to goad Miller personally and sort of attack him. It's like, I bet you when Miller went on board to encounter Julie Mao, you didn't know what you were doing, and she was gone. And he was saying all this stuff to attack him personally. And I did get the impression that he was hurt by this. And then he disappeared, which sort of furthers that impression. And I think that that even though it's been established that this isn't Miller, I think this is what the essence of Miller is there. Like, he still has feelings the way that Miller would. And I think this is proven in the next scene where Miller does appear. And he talks about what actually happened with him and Julie, and tells the story about, the story that Julie told him about the fairies coming to guide the children who die, and what he had said to the angel, and Miller thought he was being the angel to Julie when he went on board, but he didn't feel confident, but she was the one who took the hand. That was an extremely touching scene. I must admit, I shed a tear during that. That was very touching, and more to the point, it showed that even if this isn't technically Miller, this is essentially Miller. He's acting exactly as Miller would, and more to the point, he feels the same way Miller would feel, and he has genuinely true feelings. And of course, this is enough to convince Holden that he isn't being deceived, that Miller's playing straight up with him, because he can tell that this is, in a sense, Miller, and Miller wouldn't want the human race to be wiped out. So that was great. That was an amazing scene. So after that, we get the confrontation with Bobby Draper, and that was really tense. And as I said, like, Bobby didn't trust him, tried to shoot him, but then you had the bullets freeze in midair, and I love how they had that same effect where the probes froze in the previous episode, so you know what's doing it. You know that it's the protomolecule thingy, and then at the exact same time, not then, but when this thing comes to life, and it's sort of like very scary looking. I don't know if it necessarily attacks the team, but it certainly looks like an attack. So, obviously the Martian Marine throws a grenade at it and damages it, but then, boom, everything, all the ships in the slow zone, all the ships in this ring immediately get that same sort of effect we saw with the probe, and you get the impression that they suddenly stop. And that's actually a huge deal, because we saw what happened to the Belter when he suddenly stopped, although the Belter was going a lot faster than these ships are going, but still, so they're not going to be ripped to shreds like the Belter was, but it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be good, I'll tell you that much. So this is going to be really interesting to see. So that basically, the Martian Marines throwing that grenade had dire consequences for everyone involved. And and of course that Martian Marine gets ripped to shreds, basically. And that was, oh my god, that was so intense, especially seeing Draper's face where she was watching this happen, and she was like, holy shit. Now the question is she going to blame Holden for this? I hope not. I think she's smarter than that, because she knows that Holden was actually trying to get them to leave. He said that he didn't want them to get hurt, so I think she'll recognize that he was being sincere and that he wasn't working with the protomolecule to kill that guy. But I think they're also smart enough to know not to attack it again, because the way that guy just got ripped to shreds was, oh my god. Anyway, so Holden does go, put his hand in the thing, activate the thing, and this scene was amazing. Absolutely loved it. It's hard to. This is like, it reminds me of like the ending of 2001. It was very, very trippy, very sort of hard to describe, but it wasn't like as straightforward. It was a lot of imagery, a lot of space imagery. We got sort of the protomolecule going backwards. It sort of starts with the ring, forming of the ring, then we see the jellyfish coming out of Venus, and then we see Eros, and then so we get the impressions, and then we get the images of like the bird. That was a huge thing I talked about in my previous videos with Miller and Julie. The bird was a symbol that connected them, and I think they were connected through the protomolecule. But that, so I think that bird is important. But more than that, I think it was showing that we're going backwards, and then we get this image of like all these different planets. As it seems like we're in that bubble that they're in now, but through it we can see all these different places, different planets, and different things, and we see something shoot from the little orb, the nucleus that they're in now, out to one of these planets. So it's definitely telling us something. And oh my god, that just visually was amazing. I remember when I read this part in the book, it's always hard for me to visualize stuff like this that's very abstract. So actually seeing it on screen, I loved it. I loved it to death. It was so much better experience for me to actually visually see this rather than simply reading it being described. Personally, I'm just a visual person, so I just loved it. And it was such a great, intense way to end the episode. And of course, Holden just plops to the ground. I do think, I don't know, it does make me wonder if the Martians will simply capture him now that he just plopped to the ground, or if the protomolecule or Miller will stop them. I don't know. Interesting stuff. So excited for the next episode. Really upset I had to wait a whole nother week. Wish I could just watch that episode right now. Well, anyway, my rating for Dandelion Sky out of 10 is an 8. Extremely good. Another great episode. As I said, some of the stuff with Naomi and the Rosinante was a bit frustrating. Some of the stuff with Anna dragged a little bit, like that guy who killed himself. I mean, it was interesting, but maybe moving a bit too slow, whereas they skipped over some of the stuff in the novels on the Behemoth. But I did like that interaction between Drummer and Ashford. Was really intense. But that ending, man, I give this episode a 9 just for the ending alone. As I said, one of the best endings of the best ending of an Expanse episode ever since my favorite episode, Home. Even better than the one 2 weeks ago where the Rosinante went into the ring. That was an amazing ending too. I think this one tops that. So yeah, great episode. Kind of dragged in the first half, but that ending was amazing. Anyway, that is it for my spoiler-free section of my review of Dandelion Sky. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out my live discussion video where I'll be joined by Atkin Tomko and Don Willie, where we will be discussing this episode in more detail. That will be Friday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard U.S. time. And I'll have a link for that video in the description below. Also, be sure to check out my channel as I continue to cover The Expanse, and I also cover many other shows like Star Trek, Game of Thrones, Babylon 5, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching. But if you have read the novels, you can stay with me for my spoiler section, which begins now. So, I don't have much to say regarding spoilers with this episode. The only thing I want to talk about is pacing. How I have mentioned in the spoiler-free part that I think they're going a bit fast. They're skipping over, like I mentioned last week about Hector Cortez and how he was leaving, and the appearance that he's not going to be in the show anymore, that he's not coming back. Which really disappoints me because it does give me the impression that they're going to streamline the rest of the season. Now, judging by the preview for next week's episode, it seems like we're going to get the resolution to the Clarissa's storyline where she goes on the Rocinante and Anna goes and stops her, which I'm really excited to see. But when I read the novels, I thought the end of that would be the perfect stopping point for season 3. But this is only episode 11. We get 2 more episodes after that. So if they do indeed reach that ending, what are they going to do for the final 2 episodes? I'm very worried that they're going to try to do the whole Behemoth mutiny storyline within 2 episodes, which I think personally is not enough. You need a lot more than 2 episodes to cover this. Like, I was expecting this to span like half a season. So if, the producers of the showrunners had said that season 3 was going to end on a stopping point, not a cliffhanger. So, like, when they thought season 3 might be the last season, they're like, don't worry, the show will have some finality to it and won't be, like, left in the open. But that has me worried now that I know there will be a season 4, that they're just going to rush the whole part. And without Cortez there, we know, because he was a major part of that second part, so it does seem like they are streamlining it. I at least hope that they have everyone board the Behemoth like they did in the novels, like Holden and everyone on the Behemoth, and there be this sort of, but it seems like it's be hard to do that in 2 episodes and really make it work, really make it feel like, I don't know, that took off pretty much half the book. That was like almost the second half of the book. They just try to do a whole half of a book in 2 episodes. I don't see how they could do it without feeling rushed, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'll be saying, oh, they left all this stuff out of the books. But those who haven't read the books will be like, this is fine. What are you complaining about? Whatever. It's funny because I just watched this review where someone was saying they like the way Abaddon's Gate has been adapted and thought that book 2, just brain farting on the name of that book at the moment, but they thought that Caliban's War. They thought that Caliban's War wasn't adapted very well and they missed out a lot of things. I actually, so far, am pretty much the exact opposite. I thought they adapted Caliban's War fine. I thought they hit all of the major points. I think anything they left out wasn't really that important. With Abaddon's Gate, they're going through it way too fast, in my opinion. I think I do like the speed, but like how they're not. They got rid of like the slow-paced, boring stuff, like I said, with Anna, but they skipped over a lot of the setup, as I said at the very start with Monica Stewart, and they streamlined this thing with the Behemoth, and I don't know. I'm just gonna think I'm gonna be very disappointed. So for me, their adaptation of Abaddon's Gate is probably my least favorite of the 3 books that they have adapted so far, and it's definitely the one they did the fastest, because they did a season and a half. For the other 2 books, they're going to do this whole book in half a season. That's definitely the quickest they're going through the book. So personally, I would say it's the worst. But anyway, that's all I have for spoilers. I'll see you guys next week.